welcome back. This week on our old bathroom renovation series, we're tackling the walls and the ceiling. First up, we've got to straighten the walls. And I think I've come across a hack that could save me time and energy. And it starts with these battens that you just saw me cutting down to length. Let me explain. In our last episode, I illegally took on the plumbing, and in the process found out I had wonky walls. I spent hours straightening only 2 tiny walls. I had to find the high spots and then trim them back with my electric plane. The timber's Australian hardwood, which is hard, so the process was drawn out, messy, and energy sapping. So to avoid that process again, I came up with a solution that I actually haven't seen anywhere else on YouTube. The star of the show is this screw here. It's called a spacer screw and it's sold online via Screws in Australia. I'll leave a link in the description. You can see in this clip here how the screws work. Once the screw's driven, it catches on the timber and allows you to adjust the timber in and out. Combined with the timber battens, you have a rapid leveling system. So I put it to the test, anchoring the battens over the old hardwood studs. I then came back with a massive straight edge that spanned the distance to work out where the low spots were. Then I just made my way up the wall, backing out the screws that I needed to. And eventually, I was left with 2 perfectly straight walls. Now, I wouldn't go as far to say that this is a foolproof method that should be done universally. Positives were that it was far more enjoyable and less messy than the planing process, and it probably saved me a little bit of time overall, but when you take into account the price of both the battens and the screws, I ended up spending close to $250 on these 2 small walls, which for most people I would imagine would be enough to turn them off. After that, I just whacked in some blocking where I needed to, and I moved on to the insulation. So this wall here is an exterior wall, and unless we want a chilly bathroom, it's going to need to be insulated. For the gaps around the window, I used some expanding foam, and I was quite impressed with this gun I bought. It had gloves and a trigger and its own cap to reuse it. I highly recommend it. Insulated. Now I guess I just do that, but a few more times. Like essentially everything I've done on this whole project, this is the first time I've ever drywalled, first time I've ever hung it, cut it, any of that jazz. And as you would expect, being the first time doing something like this, I sucked. I feel like I didn't respect plasterboard enough coming into it. I was like, you just cut it, you chuck it on the wall, a few screws, a bit of sticky stuff, no worries. And I guess essentially it is that, which is great. But like with everything, there's more than meets the eye. Like, where do you make the cut? How do you make the cut? Do you lean on the side of too big or too small? How do you make sure they butt up properly? How do you hang it with one person? Why isn't the slopey edge bit the whole way around? How much stud adhesive? How should I lay it out? Where should I cut the holes? How do I cut the holes? They're just some of the questions that popped into my brain while I was doing this, and in the end, it all worked out pretty good, I think. But if you're a drywall pro, a gyprocker, a plasterboarder, whatever you call it wherever you are, and you're watching this and you're looking at what I'm doing and going, that's wrong, why did you do it that way? Can you please leave me a comment and let me know why I'm a goose and what I can do better? I'd really appreciate it. Mwah, love ya. Say it back. Please. One thing I think I didn't super suck at was cutting the holes for these water outlets. I knew that winging it and measuring was probably going to lead to me making mistakes and having holes in all the wrong places. So I used this lovely purple shade of lipstick to help me.
It's called Pout About It.
Now, I definitely didn't coin this technique myself, but that's not going to stop me from naming it. I'm calling it the pout and press. See, what you do is chuck a heap of lipstick over the protruding object. In this case, it's our water and mixer outlets. Then you just come back with your sheet that's cut to length and you just press it in place. And where you need to cut is left with a lovely pinky purple smooch. How good? After that, it's pretty self-explanatory. I just lined my hole saw up on the mark and made the cut.
Like butter. Alright, let's see if it fits. Or if I stuffed it. Because I don't have any more plasterboard. Please fit. How easy is that?
Now, that nifty little trick wasn't actually the start of my drywalling adventures. I began on the ceiling. Originally, I was going to drop the whole ceiling, but I got a lovely tip from the electrician saying that I could just go straight over the top of the old stuff, and that saves me buying new insulation and the cleanup and all that jazz, so thanks, electrician. To do that, I had to flatten out where all the horsehead cornices used to be.
That's a bit harder than I thought. That's going to be so slow. Other ideas?
The stuff was such a hassle in the end, I had to pull out the old sander and vacuum to get the job done. Like so many things that I'm finding on this renovation, this just took way longer than I was expecting.
In my head, 15-minute job. Reality? Half a day. Oh, this isn't fun.
In the end, what I thought was only going to be a 15-minute job turned into half a day and an absolute hassle. So like I've said, this is the first time I've ever renovated a bathroom or renovated anything. And what I'm finding is there's just so many little things like this that doesn't matter how many lists you make, plan out what you're doing, there's always going to be something that just creeps up that takes way longer than you thought and it throws everything out. But I guess without problems like these that annoy me and take up all my time, I wouldn't have the same sense of satisfaction or achievement when I finally finish something. So I guess in a way, I'm kind of grateful for that stupid horsehair that's stuck to the roof. Now, I love being able to do things all by myself, but when it came to securing the new plasterboard to the ceiling, I was having some troubles. Eventually I changed tacks and grabbed my unenthusiastic helper, who did not have a great time.
What are we supposed to do? This is awful. And the blue on me. This is really not good. I literally have to use my head. You better hurry up. Callum, I'm really, really struggling. No, I can't need you to.
Hey, it hasn't fallen
Oh
on my head
God,
yet.
my neck.
Let's go. Bloody easy.
The rest of the sheets went on relatively quickly, but maybe not as neatly as I wanted, so it left me a little bit of a challenge for the next step. When it came to compounding the joints, it was probably one of the areas I put the least research into on this build. Instead, I went the make it up along the way route, which meant I had a bit of a bumpy road and I didn't get the best results. One thing I learned along the way was that base coat compound actually dries really hard and isn't easy to sand. And I now know you should be doing light coats of it, which is absolutely not what you see me doing here.
Oh. Whoops.
So my technique of just slathering it on gave me a bit of a surprise when I came back to try and scrape it off. I tried to get as much excess compound off as I could with a scraper and eventually a chisel, but in the end I had to get the sander back out to take it back down to a relatively smooth, flat surface. And yeah, just standard stuff really, me making life hard for myself and making something that should be an easy job take way longer than it should. A couple of thick layers of topping compound really covered up the messy 2 layers of the base coat, and with a bit of sanding I got some relatively okay results. I don't know why, but I was pretty surprised with how dusty I got.
A bit dusty.
And compared to the dog, I was a fair bit happier with my solution to avoiding dust going into the house. I even managed to get a couple of coats of paint on, although it turned out to be a stupid idea because since then I've scuffed it and marked it and got waterproofing all over it. But at least out of it I got some nice finish shots to show you. Now that I had a nice white ceiling, I could move on to the last job, hanging this shiplap paneling. It's 9mm MDF with a shiplap design on it. The sheets connect together with the tongue and groove system that you can see on the screen now, and it's rated for wet areas. Getting the first panel up was a breeze, but when it came to connecting the tongue and groove, I started to have some problems.
Just hit my finger. Bottom's in. Top not so.
Besides hitting my finger, as hard as I tried, I just couldn't get the tongue and groove to close up all the way.
So I've given up. I can't get it quite to close. I'm just gonna nail it off, otherwise the stud adhesive is gonna start to set and it's gonna be a debacle. So I don't think it'll be too bad. A bit of caulk in there, I don't think you'd notice, but a bit annoying.
My brad nailer didn't always fire right and struggled getting through some of the hard wooded stages. So in some spots I had to come back with this hole punch to knock them all the way down. Next step was making my way around this window.
I've been thinking about it and I think the easiest way to do it is one of my favourite techniques, a template.
This is kind of like an arts and craft project, but instead of being for kids, it's for DIYers that aren't really sure what they're doing. Essentially I just cut some thin bits of timber to length, and then I come back with my hot glue gun and I glue it all up so it makes a nice fitting template around the window, trying to avoid getting burnt by the hot glue in the process.
Burnt my finger. Oh. Ta-da! There's my template. Good trick.
From there I just had to mark out my template, make all my cuts and bang it on the wall.
Fits.
The rest of the process was pretty similar really. I still had a lot of trouble getting the tongue and groove to close all the way up, but in the end I wasn't too unhappy with the results.
Doing stuff like this and be able to look at the end and just be like, I did that. That was me. No one else. Feels good.